الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلاة ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على هذا النبي الكريم نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue in this tremendous lesson on Sunday, April the 29th, 2 o'clock, which agrees with the Hijri calendar, which is today, which will be the 13th of Sha'ban, 1439 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we will continue in this tremendous book where every Muslim that he starts and he fundamentally corrects himself before embarking upon any other affair. For verily, we were discussing the importance of this qa'idah, or this principle, in which you'll find that a lot of the Muslims not only have compromised, rather you will find that they have totally ignored this principle, and to the point where you'll see that a lot of the turmoil not only comes as a result of neglecting all of these principles, but especially in this particular matter of what we've been discussing since last week. This principle in which we mentioned is said, which is al-qa'idah fil wala' wal bara'. And keep in mind, like we said last week, that these principles are in regards to preparing oneself for death. A lot of us do not realize that learning these principles and implementing them in our actions and in our daily lives is all connected to how our life will be in the hereafter. And the life of the hereafter, starting with the life of the grave, which is al-haya al-barzakhiyah, the middle life between the day of resurrection to when one will reach his final destination, to the life that he just left off of the living. You have the middle life, which is the life of the grave, which the ulama had described, or they call it al-hayatu al-barzakhiyah, or if you want to call fil barzakh. For one's survival in the grave relies on one's knowledge of these principles and him implementing them in his life. We were discussing the aqwal of Ahl Ilm, or the statements of Ahl Ilm in this regard, where we brought some of the statements of the ulama of Najd, which is in the tremendous treatise entitled Ad-Durr al-Sunniyah, where there were all the statements of the scholars, which were the fruits that came from the da'wah of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. And we know that many scholars have been produced at his hands rahimahullah, not only from his lineage, from his children and his grandchildren, but from others who were the fruits of his da'wah. And the greatest of fruits is when you're able to produce scholars from Ahl Sunnah. That is the greatest barakah that one can bring forth, not only aspect of wealth or the aspect of something in structures in masajid, but rather producing ulama is the greatest of our barakah and the fruits which came as a result of his da'wah rahimahullah. From those scholars that came from the da'wah at the hands of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was the great scholar from Najd, Shaykh Abdul Latif ibn Abdul Rahman. And likewise, his son, Abdullah. We also discussed how the asl, or the origin, is that one produces and shows that wala, or that muwala, that allegiance, or that closeness, or that love, or showing that a loyalty what they call, or all of that is comprehensive for the meaning of al-muwala. We said that it can be shown, as we discussed last week, by either hand, by the heart, and by actions, both. So, al-wala, or showing that allegiance, which we said last week, we can either be done by the qalb, or it could be done by al-fi'l. It could be done by the statements, or it could be done by the actions. And it could be done by both together. We talked about the statement in which that the asl, the origin, before we start talking about the exception, is that one, he hates for Allah and he loves for Allah. And he loves what Allah loves, and he hates what Allah Ta'ala hates. As Allah Ta'ala hates kufr, Allah Ta'ala hates disbelief, and Allah Ta'ala hates shirk, He hates polytheism, and Allah Ta'ala hates disobedience, and He hates sin. And likewise, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala hates bid'ah, He hates innovations. For Allah Ta'ala hates these affairs and those who practice it. So it's not only just the actual ideology itself, but those who actually embrace it and those who practice it. As Allah Ta'ala said in many places in His book, He hates kufr, where He says, وَلَا يَرْضَى لِعِبَادِهِ الْكُفْرِ. As Allah Ta'ala says in His book, that He's not pleased for His slaves kufr. And Allah Ta'ala also talks about its people, that Allah لا يحب الله الكافرين فإن الله لا يحب الكافرين, that Allah does not love the disbelievers. So all these are proofs and evidences to show that Allah detests kufr and its people, as we discussed. A lot of people will ask, and we talked about and said, what was the clear evidence to show that Allah hates? If it's not enough for the ayat in the book of Allah, then also we talked about in the hereafter there's a hellfire. As the hellfire is to clearly show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He has anger. نسأل الله يعافينا وإياكم وعافانا الله وإياكم من غضبه وسخطه وحلول نقمته. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from His anger and His wrath and His niqmah, meaning that His wrath will descend in the form of a punishment or the removal of a blessing. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the hellfire due to kufr and due to disobedience, or due to nifaq and hypocrisy, because He hates those ideologies and its belief, and as a result of it, those who embrace it and those who die upon it will be in that pit or that dwelling place that Allah has prepared for those who He hates, which is a hellfire. نسأل الله يعافينا وإياكم ويعيذنا وإياكم من ذلك. So all this we discussed, which is clear, inshaAllah, and what we're going to add to what had already proceeded from the last lesson. We also discussed that al-wala or al-muwala of allegiance is also of levels. And some of it can be considered disobedience. Some of it can even reach the level of removing one from the fold of Islam if he's not careful. We also talked about al-mu'adah or al-ida, meaning to show or to put one far away, or to not bring him close, rather make him remotely distance away from you, or to put one far away from yourself, and to show enmity and your hatred towards a certain people who embrace or upon an evil ideology. We also discussed that. So now we're going to discuss some of the ayat and bring any tafasir in this regard. For in regards to the asl, the origin of Ahl Sunnah was Salafiyin, wa Ahl al-Haq al-Mahd, those who traverse the path what is correct, then they're supposed to show their love for who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And they're supposed to have love, for example, for tawheed, for monotheism. And they love those who embrace it. And they love the people of the sunnah. Or they love the sunnah, excuse me. They love the sunnah and they love those who embrace it. And likewise, Ahl Sunnah, they hate kufr, they hate disbelief in those who embrace it. And they also hate bid'ah, and they also likewise hate those who embrace it. For verily, one does this based upon the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love these affairs. And we know that is the awthaqu ura al-iman. That is the strongest bond of faith. That bonds one's faith very strong. Is loving for Allah and hating for Allah. You'll find that is a tremendous statement. That you'll find, if you look in the principle, if you go in your books in Usul al-Thalatha, if everyone looks, we were discussing this principle where it says, whoever obeys the messenger and unites Allah, then it is not permissible for him to take as allegiance or bring close those who oppose or make war with Allah and His messenger, even if he's the closest of relative. So that is the principle what we've been covering and what we've been discussing and also elaborating upon. So you'll find that the author that he sufficed by clarifying, by biyani adam al-muwala. You'll find if you look in your books and at the title it says that whoever obeys Allah and His messenger and unites Allah in His worship, meaning the people of Tawheed, it is not permissible to make or to perform or to show or manifest muwala, allegiance or love or closeness. So he just sufficed by just now negating what everyone, that pledge and that allegiance and that closeness and that loyalty for certain people. He just negated it in the title. If you notice that in the title he did not say, meaning the author, rahimahullah, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, he did not mention in the title of who it's obligatory upon one to show enmity towards. But however, he sufficed by what would necessitate. Meaning, if one doesn't show allegiance, if one does not show allegiance or loyalty or love, then it necessitates that one, as a result of it, will what? Show and display the opposite, which is enmity and displeasure and the likes of that. Why? Because one cannot exist without the other. One cannot exist without the other. What do we mean one cannot exist without the other? If one doesn't show love and loyalty and show all these matters of what would show clearly that one has love for a certain thing or certain people, it necessitates the opposite. And that one cannot exist without the other. So one cannot just suffice with just mere love. And nor can one just suffice with mere hatred. There has to be what? There has to be both. And they both have to be in its proper place. So it's not just what? One without the other. As you'll find that our people, from those upon the deviant sects, الطوائف الضالة المضلة الموجودة في الساحة الدعوية, those from the deviant sects that are widespread amongst the Muslims, you'll find that they'll say, for example, that we suffice with just loving everyone. Love, 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 love. Let's rid ourselves of what? Of hate. Then you'll find that there are people who actually likewise go to the opposite of the extreme. You find that they say, let's just hate, 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 hate. There is no love. Kufr, you're a kafir. Khalas, kafir, kufr, kuffar. All these affairs are incorrect. Where we talked about that Ahl Sunnah is always in the middle. And they know when to display and when to display and how to display. And what way, and what manner. All those things, like we said, are very important and vital to know. Where one is in the middle and moderate, where he's not at the opposites of the extremes. Rather, he's in the middle, and he knows in its proper place when to what? Display, and when to show displeasure, and when to show what? One's love, and who to show it to, and who not to show it to. So Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in this book in so many ayat. For example, in the ayat which is in Surah Al-Mumtahina, like we discussed last week, Allah Ta'ala, as we know, upon the great prophet of Allah and messenger, alayhi wa ala nabiyina afdalus salati wa tammat taslim, Prophet Ibrahim. And we know he was Khalil Rahman. That Allah took him as someone close to him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what from the affairs in which Allah clearly shows in his book that he loved was when Ibrahim showed his detest towards the people who are upon polytheism. Where he said, إِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ مِّمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي فَإِنَّهُ سَيَهْدِينِ وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً فِي عَقِبَهِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. So Allah Ta'ala says in his book, hence when Ibrahim said to his own father and to his people, verily I am free from what you worship. So Ibrahim showed and displayed detachment, where he set himself what? Free from what they used to worship. Then he made the exception, except the one who created me and made me upon the fitrah, meaning the upright belief of monotheism and unifying Allah in his worship. For verily he will guide me. So when Allah Ta'ala, when he said, of course, when Ibrahim had did this, Allah Ta'ala gave in exchange something tremendous in the end. He says, and we made for him and made for that, for what he displayed when he set himself free, not only from his people but from his own father, for what he used to worship. We made it a remaining word in his latter progeny, in his latter generation of those who can come from his offspring. It says in order for, and maybe perhaps they will return back to the truth. Meaning, when Ibrahim had displayed his allegiance or his loyalty and his love and his closeness for Allah and for Tawheed and for monotheism and unifying Allah in his worship, because he knew, alayhi salatu wassalam, that Allah loves monotheism and he hates polytheism. So you see that Ibrahim clearly showed the same thing. He tried to make of what was his hawa, or what made his desire turn or in accordance to what Allah loves and what Allah hates. And make sure it was in what? It was in accordance with what Allah Ta'ala liked or Allah Ta'ala hates, where he displayed his displeasure and his detestment towards the people of Kufr. Likewise, Ibrahim has showed the same thing. For anything that was associated with Allah as partners, until Allah made it a lasting or remaining word in his progeny or in his later generation from his offspring, in which all of the prophets had inherited. Meaning, if you look in the ayah, which is a sort of Zukhruf, which is ayah number 26 and 28, Allah Ta'ala said, when Ibrahim did this virtuous act, he said, we made a remaining word which came in the latter generations. Meaning, the latter generations from those later prophets that came, where they inherited the same thing, and also from the followers of the prophets. They inherited the exact same thing, meaning the exact same methodology of loving for Allah and hating for Allah, and loving Tawheed and hating Shirk, and loving Tawheed and loving its people, and hating Shirk and its people. You'll find there's a tremendous, profound statement that was also mentioned by the great Imam. And I think this goes back to even in Durud Sunniyah. And it's by, I think it's Abdullah ibn Abdul Latif, rahimahullah. He says, وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّ الْإِنسَانَ, and listen to what he goes on to say, وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَا يَسْتَقِيمُ لَهُ إِسْلَامٌ. Now this is a tremendous, profound statement. He said, الْإِنسَانُ لَا يَسْتَقِيمُ لَهُ إِسْلَامٌ وَلَوْ وَحَّدَ اللَّهَ وَتَرَكَ الشِّرْكَ إِلَّا بِعَدَاوَةِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَالتَّصْرِيحِ لَهُمْ بِالْعَدَاوَةِ وَالْبُغْضِ ونقل الإجماع على ذلك الشيخ عبد الرحمن بن حسن علي الشيخ عبد الرحمن بن حسن صاحب فتح المجيد فقال أجمع العلماء سلفا وخلافا من الصحابة والتابعين والأئمة وجميع أهل السنة أن المرء لا يكون مسلما إلا بالتجرد من الشرك الأكبر والبراءة منه وممن فعله وبغضهم ومعاداتهم. So it's two statements. One is by Abdullah ibn Abdul Latif. Now, he says, verily one's Islam is not correct or straight. Listen to this. His Islam will not be correct or straight, even if he unified Allah in his worship. And even if he left off polytheism. Except by showing and displaying enmity for the polytheists, and also displaying to them that enmity, that hatred of what? Of what they're upon. And also likewise towards them. He says this is an ijma', it's a consensus in which we even find the great Imam Abdurrahman ibn Hassan ibn Hassan Ali Sheikh, who is the author of Fath al-Majid, which is the explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed. Listen to what Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Hassan, what he goes on to say. He says the ulama have a consensus from the Salaf and the Khalaf, from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the A'imma and all of Ahl Sunnah, that a person will not be Muslim except by tearing and ripping himself away from major polytheism and separating himself from it and showing his disloyalty to it and showing his enmity and hatred towards it, and from the one who does it. Why, everyone? Because like we said, because this is what? The true bonds of faith in which the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned. So that is from the first statement. There's a lot of ayat in this regard, ya ma'ashal ikhwa wal akhawat. There's another ayat which is in Surah Al-Imran, which is ayat number 28, Surah Al-Imran. He says, and from that you'll find another ayah. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين ومن يفعل ذلك فليس من الله في شيء إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقاه ويحذركم الله نفسه وإلى الله المصير. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that He said in His book, لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين ومن يفعل ذلك فليس من الله في شيء إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقاه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book that the mu'mineen will never take the disbelievers as awliya, as a wali, meaning make a muwala. If you notice, all these words are derivatives of the word wali or muwala, wala. It's all the same root. It goes back to the same meaning. Wala, muwala, awliya, wali. It's all the same words. That the mu'minun will never take the kafirin as awliya. Besides the mu'mineen. Meaning that you'll find that there are some Muslims, you'll find that even though they say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, you'll find that they show tremendous love and respect and reverence to the non-Muslims. And then when it comes to the people of Tawheed and the people of Sunnah and the people who really want to practice it correctly, they'll display anger and hatred and malice towards them and show their displeasure towards them. This is to show that they have not rectified their fundamentals in this regard, and this is dangerous. Because Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran, ayah number 28, He says, whoever does that, then listen to what Allah Ta'ala says in His book. فَلَيْسَ مِنَ اللَّهِ فِي شَيْءٍ. And he is not from Allah in anything in the least, except أن تتقوا منهم تقاه. He says, except in now here when Allah Ta'ala gives an exception. That Allah Ta'ala says in His book, إِلَّا أَن تَتَّقُوا مِنْهُمْ تُقَاهُ. He says that let's go to the last part. He says that the exception is, except when taking a precaution against them in prudence. Meaning, in certain circumstances that you are in a land where they're non-Muslims and that they're dominant over you. You're more in number and strength to the end of it. He says, now you will display and show something else, even though in your hearts you have that hatred because they are upon disbelief and upon what? Shirk. Now listen to the ayah, the tafsir, as it goes on to say, even Ibn Kathir mentions this. He says, when Allah Ta'ala says, do not take, that the mu'mineen will not take the non-Muslims the disbelievers openly, as what? As ansar, as helpers or aiders or what have you. In which they will now make them prominent and dominant over their religion, and they will aid the non-Muslims over the Muslims, and over destroying their religion, or dominating over them, or dominating over their religion, or dominating over the Muslims, or dominating over the mu'mineen, or going to them and directing them towards certain things which are secret about them, and their secrets, going to the non-Muslims and telling them this and telling them that, showing what? That's the true meaning of what we're discussing now. Showing your love and loyalty to them, where you're betraying or showing betrayal, and your displeasure, and your mistrust, in this type of perfidiousness to or against the mu'mineen. To the point, like we said, you aid them over the mu'mineen, where you take them as awliya, where you show and aid them, whereas they're to dominate over the Muslimin, or to show victory over them, or to help them in some type of way that will gain victory over them, or to indicate towards their secrets or direct them towards their secrets. For verily whoever does this is not from Allah in anything in the least. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? Is free from this. To the point where it can even lead the person out the fold of Islam, and he can fall into riddah, to being apostate if he's not careful, and he will enter into disbelief. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the ayah, if you notice, gives an exception. He says, إِلَّا أَن تَكُونُوا فِي سُلْطَانِهِمْ فَتَخَافُونَهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ. He says, however, he says, if in extreme circumstances, where you are or under their jurisdiction, and you're afraid for yourselves. You're afraid for yourselves, some type of what? Some type of horror, or them doing something very horrific to you, or doing something very violent, or even threatening you with torture or pain, or fear out of punishment of your loved ones or of yourself, or what have you. And to the end of it, he says, then there's no problem that you show, you display your walaya with your tongues. You show, for example, some type of what? Walaya. You're showing allegiance with the tongue. However, you're still hiding in your heart hatred. وَلَا تُشَايِعُوهُمْ عَلَى مَا هُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْكُفْرِ. And the other exception is that you do not follow them upon what they're upon of disbelief. Nor do you aid them over the Muslims with their action. So this is similar to what we are here in this country. Similar to what we do here. And we're also going to talk about likewise the ayah in which Allah Ta'ala also shows that one can show all the different types of good and good behavior and good dealings which we've been commanded. Also likewise in dealing with them. Another ayah is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tattakhidhu aduwi wa aduwakum awliya tulquna ilayhim bil mawadda wa qad kafaru bima ja'akum min al haqq yukhrijuna ar-rasula wa iyyakum أن تؤمنوا بالله ربكم إن كنتم خرجتم جهادا في سبيلي وابتغاء مرضاتي. To the end of the ayah, which is in Surah Al-Mumtahina. So Allah Ta'ala in another ayah, which is in Surah Al-Mumtahina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says clearly in the first ayah, do not, O who you believe, do not take my enemy and your enemy as awliya. Do not take my enemy and your enemy as awliya, in which you show and you cast towards them that mawadda, that love. Now notice in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, they have disbelieved what has came to you of the truth, in which they even showed enmity towards the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where they casted him out, and they casted and exiled you out. Because you believe in Allah, your Lord, He says, and also likewise, in kuntum kharajtum jihada fi sabili wabtigha mardati. He says, hence when you went out in order to fight in my cause and to seek my pleasure. So Allah Ta'ala in this ayah is prohibiting what, everyone? That because they showed enmity. So here we're talking about especially the non-Muslims that shows hatred. It shows enmity. And shows their detestment, their displeasure, and making war. So if that's the case, then one has to likewise what? Have the same thing. Because Allah Ta'ala does not love the disbelievers and what? They are doing of making war with monotheism. And not only that, doing and putting forth their utmost effort in order to wipe out monotheism and its people. So it's all the more reason that one, likewise, like we said, that his hawa, of his desires, is accordance to what Allah loves and what Allah hates. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates kufr, and that war be made against the truth, in which likewise is incumbent upon the mu'min, likewise to be similar to that where he hates, that the truth be what? Be fought against. Or that people aid the people of disbelief against the truth. This likewise has to be the same thing of the mu'mineen. And the people who truly have cleansed their tawheed, their monotheism, and purified their testimony of La ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. So Allah Ta'ala, when He says this in His book, it shows that He is prohibited the what? In this ayah, which is the Surah Al-Mumtahina, that He what? He prohibited to take the kuffar generally as awliya. That doesn't matter whether they be from the Yahud or the Nasara, especially due to the tremendous type of reprehensible matters that will come as a result of this, all the way up to the day of resurrection. There's so many different ayats Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says in His book. It's a lot of ayats. These are just a couple. There's another ayah which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah Ta'ala says, do not take the Yahud and the Nasara as awliya. He said, rather they are awliya, protectors and aiders of themselves. He says, and whoever does that from amongst you, for verily he is from them. Verily Allah does not guide the oppressive people. So this is the asl. This is the origin. Tayyib, what about now? A person would say, what about when the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had visited the Yahud, or he had a neighbor who was from the Jews, and he was very nice towards him, and he showed good dealings with him, and likewise to the point where even the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam even visited his own child when he was on his deathbed. So how does one combine all those different evidences and proofs? That is due to the ayah. Well, Allah Ta'ala now says in another ayah, which is in Surah Al-Mumtahina, ayah number 8. If you go back to Surah Al-Mumtahina, ayah number 8, Allah Ta'ala now brings another exception in this regard, which we're discussing now. He said that Allah Ta'ala has not prohibited those who did not fight you because of your religion, and those who did not cast you out from your dwelling places or from your living quarters, from your houses. And nor did they try to aid against expelling you out. He says, أَن تُوَلُّوهُمْ, is that you do what? That you now take them as someone, and someone that is, where you can deal and have good dealings towards them. He says, أَن تَبُرُّوهُمْ وَتُقْسِطُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. He said that you show them the good dealings and the good type of good treatment towards them. What does the Ibn Kathir mention in this regard in the ayah? If you look at Ibn Kathir, what does he say? Allah Ta'ala says in this ayah, He says, يَقُولُ الْعِبَادِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ بَعْدَ أَنْ أَمْرَهُمْ بِعَدَاوَةِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Listen to what Ibn Kathir says. He says, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now, He commanded the mu'mineen to have hatred towards the kafirin, to show enmity. Then there's another ayah which is a Surah Mumtahina. It says, أَعِسَ اللَّهُ يَجْعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ عَادَيْتُمْ مِنْهُمْ مَوَدَّةً. Now there's another ayah. Now a person would say, subhanAllah, well, how do we gather between all these evidences? There's another ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, maybe perhaps Allah will make between you and those who you may enmity some type of mawadda, a mahabba, after hatred. So what do we say about this ayah? It's in ayah number 9. It's another ayah, Surah Al-Mumtahina likewise. What do we say? For all those, this is an exception in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given in His book. Here it is. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited those who made war with you. Now those who did not make war with you, those who did not cast you out, those that might be curious about the religion, those who do not know really truly what's going on, or a person that's been misguided due to some type of effect of some ambiguity or something that might have been on the news or something that might have all the different types of evil that's been displayed. No doubt, in the mind of a person, this has been betrayed as what Islam shows. It's something of chaos or something that is a savage type of religion where it just shows hatred and killing and murder. For a person that doesn't know, and never showed any type of enmity, I just want to know, I'm curious. Or a person from the non-Muslims who really truly don't know what's going on. Allah Ta'ala even said about them, He said, for those who did not prohibit, He did not prohibit from you, that those who did not show enmity and make war with you, He says, and tuqsitu ilayhim. He said that you show them bir, all the different types of good towards them, and also be just towards them. And you'll find, like we said, of so many different stories of non-Muslims, of how, when they seen how just the Muslims were towards them, even for certain things that a Muslim might have committed of a crime, and it was against a non-Muslim, in which they showed and they carried out what was something just in regards to their own family member. And when they seen that type of just, or that type of, that adl, how they were so just in how they was dealing with their families, even though they did something wrong, and they were not defending them even though they were the oppressor. Rather, they were what? Showing and disciplining them and giving them the punishment they deserved. When they seen this, they were surprised. And also likewise, as we know in a lot of different non-Muslim countries, that how they became Muslim, especially in Indonesia and all those other Muslim countries, they said that a lot of them became Muslims because they seen the good dealings that the Muslims had with the people, of how they used to deal with them and how they were truthful with them, how they used to treat them, how they used to make them feel comfortable, how they used to show good types of mannerisms with them. All these different things is what impressed them. How they were clean, how they were hospitable, how they used to talk to each other. Even the Muslims, of how they used to deal with each other, how they used to talk to each other, and how the good treatment they had towards each other and towards the non-Muslims, of those who they were dealing with as far as in business and trade. Until, like we said, they were so impressed to the point where they even embraced Islam as a result of this. So when Allah Ta'ala said this in the ayah, as it comes to Sahih Muslim, on the authority of Abu Sufyan, The Messenger of Allah says, Ya Rasulullah, ثلاث أعطينهن. قال نعم. وتؤمرني أقاتل الكفار كما كنت أقاتل المسلمين. قال نعم. ومعاوية تجعله كاتب بين يديك. قال نعم. قال وعندي أحسن العرب وأجمله حبيبة بنت أبي سفيان أزوجكها. الحديث. To the end with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ talked about the story of what happened with the Yahud, in which I'm going to discuss in a minute. There's a narration in which Imam Ahmad says, قالت, brought the isnad, قدمت وقدمت أمي وهي مشركة في عهد قريش إذ عاهدوا فأتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا رسول الله إن أمي قدمت وهي راغبة أفأصلها قال نعم صلي أمك. Now listen to this narration of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. As it comes in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, on the authority of Asma bint Abi Bakr, she said that my mother, now keep in mind that her mother was a polytheist. She was a mushrika during the time of Quraysh. He says, hence they had also made a truce or a treaty with them, or a pact with them. She says, and I came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I said, oh Messenger of Allah, verily my mother, she came. And she came and she what? وَهِيَ رَاغِبَةٌ. So now when she only came to visit me, she's also what? Interested. Or she's desiring to see me. He says, do I keep the family ties? Listen to the narration. أَفَأَصِلُهَا. Do I keep the family ties with her? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes. Keep the family ties with her. Sali, not salli, sali. Keep the ties. Keep the ties with your mother. أخرجاه. Meaning treat her with kindness. Treat her with goodness. Treat her respect. Show her respect. To the end of it. Also likewise, قدمت قتيلة على ابنتها أسماء بنت أبي بكر بهدايا. Now listen to this narration. Sisters, listen to this narration. It says, قال حدثنا. Also there's another narration, Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. Listen to this narration. He says, عامر ibn Abdullah ibn Zubayr عن أبيه عبد الله ibn الزبير قال قدمت قتيلة على ابنتها أسماء بنت أبي بكر بهدايا صناب وأقط والسمن وهي مشركة فأبت أسماء أن تقبل هديتها تدخلها بيتها فسألت عائشة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأنزل الله الآية. Now listen to this one, يا معاشر الأخوات. This is tremendous. So this is another narration talking about what happened with Asma, the daughter of Abu Bakr. So the daughter of Asma, the mother who's Qutayla, she entered upon her daughter Asma, and she had gifts. She had different types of gifts she wanted to give her. She was a mushrika, she was a polytheist. So Asma rejected, she refused to take the gifts. And also, now keep in mind, she said, and also she rejected and prohibited her from even putting it in her house. So we know Asma was the sister of who? Of Aisha. So Aisha asked the Messenger of Allah ﷺ about this. So when she asked, this ayat was revealed in Surah Al-Mumtahina, that Allah has not prohibited you, that you what? Of those who did not fight you because of your religion, that you show good dealing or show all types of birr, of good types of dealings to them. So listen to this ayah, listen to this part, to the end of the ayah. So listen what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said to her. فَأَمَرَهَا أَن تَقْبَلَ هَدِيَّتَهَا. Listen to this. So the Prophet ﷺ commanded her to accept the gift and to let her put it in her house. Jayyid. There's another narration. This is all mentioned in Ibn Kathir. Ibn Kathir mentioned this. في المدة التي كانت بين قريش ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. وقتيلة بنت عبد العزة ابن عبد السعد من بني مالك بن حسن وزاد بن أبي حاتم في المدة التي كانت بين قريش ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. To the end of it. It's the same narration. طيب. Also on the authority of Aisha wa Asma أنهما قالتا قدمت علينا أمنا المدينة وهي مشركة في الهدنة التي كانت بين قريش وبين رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now listen to another narration. Same is similar to the one that we just preceded. It says, when he thought of Aisha wa Asma, that both of them said that their mother had came upon us. Who Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu was previously or was married to her before. And so there was the mother of Aisha and the mother of Asma. So she came to Medina. She said during the time there was a treaty. There was a hudna. So we know a hudna means like a treaty between the Quraysh and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we said, O Messenger of Allah, verily our mother has come to us from Medina, and she desires to see us. Do we keep our family ties with her? He said, yes. Keep the family ties. Fasilaha. Keep the family ties with her. جيد. قلت وهو منكر الحديث بهذا السياق لأن أم عائشة هي أم رومان. But there's another narration. Alhamdulillah, the other one is sahih too. The other one, not this one, but the other one. إن الله يحب المقسطين. طيب, when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says in His book, verily Allah those who are muqsit. There's the hadith is sahih that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala also says to show not only kindness to them, but to be just. To be just to them. Meaning that you also, in regards to judging between them, say the correct ruling, even if it's against your own family, or even if it's against someone who you love. If they oppress them, then you always have to what? Aid the truth, not the oppressor, due to some type of what? Some relationship or blood or what have you. Rather, if it opposes the truth or one that goes against it, then we always aid the truth, even if they are a family member or someone that is from us. So when Allah Ta'ala had said this in this ayat, this shows clearly how we're supposed to display what everyone? Good towards those who did not make war with us and those who we have those treaties or those pacts with, that we treat them with kindness and that we show good dealings with them. However, it's a difference between showing good dealings and also likewise showing that truthfulness and veracity with them and displaying all that different types of good of the religion and all the things that it calls to of what is good, but at the same time still having in one's heart of hate and detestment towards disbelief and hypocrisy and those who embrace its people. As I'll also talk about the other narration of Abu Darda later on, inshallah, where he said that we used to be to a people that we would smile, but at the same time that our hearts would still have that hatred, where it would be cursing them in certain situations, not. So this shows that the also is to have that hatred towards kufr, or the disbelief in his people, but however we've still been commanded that in those circumstances that those who did not make war with us, or make war with the Muslimin, or make war with Allah and His Messenger, if they did not, that we display all the good that Allah Ta'ala has commanded us of good, like we said, character, good dealings, good mannerisms, showing that we're clean people, hospitable people, we could be comfortable, we can make people feel comfortable, we can do all these different types of things. So it would be a means and incentive for them to embrace Islam, but at the same time, not to compromise, as they will not respect you if you compromise. Not to compromise. Not to compromise your beliefs, not to compromise your what? Not to compromise what you're upon. But rather, showing good dealings and being hospitable and treating them good, especially for those who did not make war or show their hatred towards Islam, of course. Due to the fact that also likewise, having that patience for certain people that shows, for example, at a job, you'll find certain people, usually due to the non-Muslims, a lot of them don't have good manners as far as respecting the Muslims in certain circumstances. Also, we'll show the brothers and sisters of how to deal with those situations. Not to retaliate similar to what they came with you with of ignorance, but knowing how to deal with it properly. Especially due to this country, there's other ways of dealing with it instead of cursing or insulting or using obscene language or displaying some type of what? unacceptable behavior, or hollering or raising one's voice. Those things that we are trying to teach our people not to indulge in. There's other ways of dealing with situations, and if you see a person that they're being ignorant, then walking away. And showing your discontentment by just walking away. If you see a person that he's insolent, he doesn't want to listen, and he's raising the voice, and that's even amongst ourselves. We're knowing when to walk away, and knowing when that if the conversation is leading to the point where there's no respect being shown, to just get up and walk away. There's something that is hard upon us, in which we have to learn. Especially in certain arenas where this type of tactic needs to be what? Needs to be utilized. And which is hard for a lot of us to do because we've been cultivated in this country upon ignorance and retaliating ignorance with ignorance. That's how we've been taught. If someone curses at you, you curse back at them with a crazier or something even worse. Or if they insult you, then you insult them worse. And you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's sad to say that we even carry this on in our dealings with each other. But all of this is from the behavior in which we were raised upon before Islam, that we have to cleanse ourselves of. Cleanse ourselves of. Because it's unacceptable behavior. But as far as in regards to this ayah, or this type of hadith, or this ayah here, then it shows that clearly in the Sahaba, that the Prophet ﷺ commanded that they still have good dealings with their mother, with Aisha and Asma, with their own mother, even though she was a polytheist. But it was at a time where there was a treaty, of course, amongst the mushrikeen, in which the Messenger of Allah, ﷺ, like we said, showed to what? Not only that, treat her well, but accept those gifts that she came with. But we're not talking about the occasion of Christmas, of those type of matters. She just came to visit them, and she brought some gifts with her because she wanted to visit her children. So she brought some gifts with her, and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, allow her to come in, treat her with kindness, and accept the gifts. But if it's certain occasions, then that's something different. But if it just so happened that a mother or your mother wanted to bring some gifts, or even bring you gifts to your own mother who's a non-Muslim, and it's not on a specific occasion like Christmas and all that, but it's just on a random day, then there's nothing wrong with giving your own mother a gift. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with giving your non-Muslim relatives gifts on not on occasions specifically for Christmas and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just randomly on a given day. I'm just thinking about my mother. I'm going to go to the store and buy her something nice and go give her that gift. There's nothing wrong with that. So these are the ayats to show how Islam puts everything in its proper place. That the origin is where what? One has that the testament, and that's the asl. But in certain circumstances, of course, from the non-Muslims of how to deal with them, and in which one can show good dealings, and show that good character, and good morals, and good character, and that nice speech to them. All of that is an incentive for them to what? To come to Islam. As far as cursing them and insulting them, this will be a what? This will be a means for them to reject Islam and not to accept it. So we have to show all the different types of good mahasin, of all those good affairs and signs of what the religion calls to, in order for it to be an incentive for them to desire to enter in the fold of Islam. But if they see that we hate them or if we show inappropriate behavior to them, then this will be a reason for them to reject it. We ask Allah to better our akhlaq and our dealings so it can allow the people to be guided. And also likewise, this also is connected with the people of innovations. As we know that the people of innovations likewise, that they have not been taught properly. And you'll find, similar to who we run into of those who are not upon Salafiyah, but rather they are upon some other type of ideology from the deviant sects, similar to that from those from our family members that have not made wage war against Salafiyah or callers to what they're upon of falsehood. And we might have mothers who are, for example, Sufi, or we might have mothers, for some of them are upon Sufiyah, or some of them who are upon Ikhwaniyah. Similar likewise how we treat them with kindness and treat them with respect and reverence. In this regard likewise Islam, if they have not opposed the law and His Messenger as far as in the affairs of the Sunnah and Tawheed and things of that nature. There's nothing wrong with that. For the last thing we'll stop, inshallah, we'll stop here. What is the status of al-wala' wal-bara'? مكانة الولاء والبراء من الإيمان. What is the status now? Why is it so important, this affair of wala' wal-bara', and knowing how to show wala' wal-bara'? Hating kufr, or hating disbelief, and hating shirk and polytheism and its people. How? Why is it so important? There's so many ayats in the book of Allah Ta'ala concerning this, where Allah Ta'ala had talked about how the curse of the prophets that came upon the people due to them falling into negating this principle or watering it down. For example, in the ayat which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayat number 80 and 81, He says, وَتَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتَوَلَّوْنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَبِئْسَ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لَهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أَنْ سَخِطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَفِي الْعَذَابِ هُمْ خَالِدُونَ ولو أنهم آمنوا بالله والنبي وما أنزل إليه ما اتخذوهم أولياء ولكن كثير منهم فاسقون. Allah Ta'ala says in his book in Surah Al-Ma'idah, He says, from the people of Bani Israel, He said they were cursed upon the tongue of David, and Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus the son of Mary. Why was they cursed upon their tongues? He said, ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. What they used to be disobedient and how they used to transgress the boundaries. Now listen to this. What was those boundaries and things that they used to transgress, or affairs they used to transgress? Listen to this. He says, تَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتَوَلَّوْنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. He says you used to find a lot of them taking as awliya, those who are close, and aiding them over the people of the truth, and helping them over the people of the truth, and showing their discontentment for the people of the truth, and aiding falsehood, and aiding disbelief, and aiding it that it go forward to the end of it. They were doing these type of matters, indulging in these type of matters. He says, وَتَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتَوَلَّوْنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. You'll find a lot of them from Bani Israel that they used to take as awliya, those who used to disbelieve. Listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described their actions. He said, لَبِئْسَ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لَهُمْ أَنفُسُهُم أَنْ سَخِطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. He says how evil what they used to put forth with their own hands, until Allah's anger came upon them and His wrath came upon them. And سَخِطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. Allah became angry with them. He says, and in the punishment in the hereafter, they're going to dwell therein. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, go in the ayah which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, when Allah ta'ala says in His book, He says, وَلَوْ كَانُوا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالنَّبِيِّ. If they would have believed in Allah and their Prophet and what was revealed to him, if they had truly believed, they would not have taken them as awliya. However, a lot of them are fasiqun. So Allah Ta'ala had mentioned in His book, in this ayah, had mentioned a condition, which they call jumlatun shartiyya. Like they call it basically a conditional clause. Or conditional clause. Not unconditional, conditional clause. Or conditional sentence. تقتضي أنه إذا وجد الشرط وجد المشروط بحرف اللو. So Allah Ta'ala gave a condition that ayah. He says, if they would have believed, truly. Meaning that if they would have carried this out, of Iman and Allah and His Messenger, what was revealed to them, or revealed to the Prophet, or that messenger at the time. If they had did that, they would not have taken them as awliya. Meaning, دل على أن الإيمان المذكور ينفي باتخاذهم أولياء. When Allah Ta'ala mentioned this ayah, He says that shows that Iman, that it became negated when they took them as awliya. When they started to now show their what? When they started to now display their discontentment towards or against the people of the truth, and show their loyalty and their love to those who hated Tawheed and monotheism, and wanted to also likewise make sure that Tawheed did not go forward, rather kufr was what? Would that be dominant, and that it be widespread in the earth, and aiding its people, and showing loyalty to them, and showing their aid and their hatred, disgust towards the people of the truth. He says when they did this, Allah Ta'ala showed to the point where even their faith became negated. Their faith became nullified. Because faith will never come together with those who truly have it, of taking those who make enemies of Allah and enemies of the truth. You will never find that a person that truly has true faith taking them as awliya and doing this, especially in their heart, which is an indication that taking them as awliya, this action necessitates what? That it's obligatory to what? Purify it. And that is of the utmost importance to learn these principles, to knowing how to put it in its proper place. Always having that love for Allah and hatred for Allah. And loving what Allah loves and hating what Allah hates. And loving Tawheed in His people, loving the Sunnah in His people, loving Salafi in His people, and those who oppose it. And the opposite. With the opposite meaning of it, hating disbelief, hating hypocrisy, hating polytheism, and hating bid'ah in His people. But however, like we said, we gave the exception of we gave clarity to show, even though we still carry this hatred in our hearts, but in circumstances where we know there are people who are ignorant and people who truly do not know what's going on, or they've been deluded by, for example, the different programs and the different types of radical type of Islam that they broadcast and what they poison their minds of the people by. Those type of people, like we said, even though we hate the disbelievers and we have that kufr in our, or we have that hatred in our heart, but still at the same time, we still show good dealings with them in certain those type of circumstances. But we still what? At the same time, show in certain circumstances are what? That type of good dealings with them and good treatment of them. But at the same time, we do not what? Compromise. A lot of people, they, subhanAllah, you'll find that some of the people, even they think that good dealings necessitates now that you start to take them as a close friend of yours, that you go out with them consistently, constantly. This is my friend. We do this together. We're close. I advise her. She advises me. It cannot be to that extent. For a person that truly has faith, and their faith is correct, it will not extend to this point. Not even to the point where we'll find some of our brothers and sisters, you'll find that they tell their non-Muslim families certain things going on amongst the Muslims. And what's going on here? This is what's going on in our masjid. What's going on? Hey, I don't believe those Muslims. They, you know what, oh, mom, or they'll say to their sister, or they even say, or they have like a non-Muslim and tell them, oh yeah, my husband, you know what he did? You know what he did? To the end of it. And then your mother's looking at you like your husband does that, and he's a Muslim? He's a practice Muslim. Ooh, I don't want to be Muslim. That's how Muslim men treat their wives. Ooh. He has another wife, and I don't understand why brothers and sisters do that. Because the non-Muslims truly don't understand. First of all, he had another wife. What do you mean he had another wife? Ooh. There's another wife. What are you talking about? Girl, you need to find a man that don't have a wife. Of course she's going to give you the wrong advice. She don't understand. She's not upon what you're upon. She doesn't get it. Of course she's going to give you bad advice because she doesn't understand Islam. She doesn't understand the proper aqeedah, the proper belief. So, of course she's going to tell you, yeah, divorce him, find a man that doesn't have a wife. And also likewise, what is a non-Muslim more than likely going to tell you? Oh yeah, date him. Go out and date. What's wrong with that? I don't understand you Muslims, why you do that. Why y'all have these marriages where you truly don't know anyone, you don't really know the person. Y'all need to date, get to know each other a little bit, go out, have some fun, get to know her a little bit. These are the type of advice they're going to give you. What do you expect? They don't know any better. That's the reason why it should never be to the extent where, like we said, what goes on the masajid, you start to now go back to tell them, you now give a bad type of image about the religion, about the people, how they are, telling them what's going on. Yeah, and you know that the non-Muslims, They would never, even if they knew something bad about their own church preacher, they would never tell you. They would never tell you. They would make sure that their preacher, even though he probably, but still he's the preacher at the end of the day. I'm not going to tell you to sell out my people for you. And the non-Muslims will do that for their own people. So it's incumbent upon our people, because we have evidences and proofs, not to aid them against all the people of the truth, not to aid them against Ahl Sunnah, the people of Tawheed, not to aid them against the truth or trying to demolish or suppress the truth or what? Nullify it. So we'll suffice by what we mentioned here. Inshallah, bi'idhnillah, we'll talk about some of the stories of what happened with the Sahaba, which I wanted to talk about, but we'll suffice by this so we can start the class in another 15 minutes. Is there any questions about the lesson? She said no, or did she say naam? هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك